Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Art Forum. For those of you who don't know me, I'm David Sequeira, and I'm the director of the Margaret Lawrence Gallery and also the person that coordinates the Art Forum program. And before I introduce our guest speakers today, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional landowners on which I'm located and offer you the opportunity to do the same. For me, I'm on Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri land, part of the Greater Kulin Nation. And I acknowledge that for generations before the Victorian College of the Arts or the University of Melbourne existed, that people of the Kulin Nation shared stories, that they made art, that they performed dance, that they practiced healing, and that these rituals continue today. And we don't take it lightly that we get to make art and practice curatorship and have the conversations that we have around Australian culture on this land. And I pay my respects with real joy to elders past, present and emerging. Our guest speakers today, the Ryan Sisters. The Ryan Sisters is a multidisciplinary collaboration between sisters Pip Ryan and Natalie Ryan, which exists outside their own practices. Together, Pip and Nat explore ideas that are associated with humour, horror, death and the absurd. Using combinations of spatial installation and intervention, they reference these themes while playing with dualities that exist between the merging of their identities. Their recent projects include the John Fries Award at the Australian Centre for Contemporary Art in 2019, I forgot how to say this, hold on, let me say it slowly. Collaboratory at Latrobe Art Institute, Disquiet Off You at Dark MOFO, Gruesome Twosome at Nicholas Projects, and 1000 Forms of Fear at the Australian Experimental Art Foundation. Wherever you are, please join me in making Pip and Nat very, very welcome.
Oh, thanks so much, David. We're really thrilled to be here and we hope everyone who's joining us today is doing okay over these challenging times. We too would like to acknowledge the lands on which we're, the traditional owners of the lands on which we live and work, which is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And we pay our deepest respects to elders past, present and emerging. We just wanted to talk about the format and how we've assembled some of the slides today. We've kind of done them in a bit of a chronological order. We've included heaps of works in progress shots because we'd like to speak to these kind of the process that we work with. It's rarely seen and it's usually something that we get quite a few questions about. We've deliberately left out our solo practices as there's quite a few slides to get through and we don't really have enough time to kind of cover that. But I will say that Nat's from a sculpting background. She completed her undergrad at VCA and her honours and PhD at Monash. I'm from a drawing background and completed my undergrad honours and masters at VCA. We thought we'd start by talking about some really early influences in our work and how our collaboration started and has progressed. So we'll kind of talk to some of the things that kind of, I guess, have shaped our aesthetic and what we're interested in doing. And we look forward to questions after the talk. So we'll get into the talk. So the first slide that we are showing is the Stubble-Peter. So we grew up with German background, so our mum's German. And a lot of the works, a lot of really early kind of stories, folklore, and I guess things that we kind of saw were read to us when we were young were books like these. So the Grimm's fairy tales, the Stubble-Peter, Max and Moritz, and they're all kind of quite scary books that are quite violent with children that are doing naughty things. So the boy on the right is getting his thumb cut off because he sucks it all the time. And the Stubble-Peter on the left is a child that doesn't want to cut his hair or toenails. And I think they just all meet these kind of really dark demises. So that's we grew up having those read to us when we were children.
The other thing we grew up with was horror films. Like, we saw a lot of horror films growing up. We weren't allowed to always watch them, but we grew up with 3 boys. We'd be able to sort of, I guess, get away with murder with them and watch all the horror films we wanted. One of those films was Jaws. This was a trip that we did. I guess it was a really important trip for us and did influence us, and has definitely come back later in our practice. We went over to Germany to see Mum's family, England to see Dad's family, and we stopped in LA as well. We went to Universal Studios. So the photo on the left is a family portrait with Jaws, and when we were there, we got to see the Psycho House. We went on a lot of different rides. One of them was a flood scene. Another one was a Jaws as well that came out of the water. And then on the right is a photo from the Chamber of Horrors at Madame Tussauds in London, which we went to. I mean, we were only, I would have been about 8 and it would have been about 5. It was pretty scary, and it's something that's definitely come back in our practice.
Yeah, we also, because we were, I guess, children of the 80s and 90s, we loved heaps of puppetry, Jim Henson's puppetry, and lots of like kind of dark, I guess fairy tales. So just included a few film stills that have been inspirations to us. We've got the Labyrinth, Queen Mumby from Return to Oz, which was pretty terrifying and really, you know, with the wheelies. And Queen Mumby taking her heads off, and The Nothing, which is, I think, you know, one of the kind of scariest things as a child. So these kind of films that we grew up in, they really helped shape our aesthetic as well, and what we loved. So yeah.
These are some other. Oh, sorry.
No, you go for it.
These are some other films. We've got The Thing on the left and Aliens on the right. The Thing was a movie that we watched like over and over again, and we're just sort of obsessed with this, the body morphing and this sort of alien human hybrid, and really, I guess, prosthetics and stuff is something that we saw a lot of films that were schlocky, like Evil Dead and other films like that and Freddy, that have really played into our practice later on. And Aliens also was a really important movie for us as young women, to see a female lead and a female hero in a horror movie was something that we loved, and it really influenced us too.
Yeah. So I guess talking a bit about the collaboration, we unfortunately we've collaborated since we were kind of in high school. So we both did studio arts. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the artwork that we made in high school in this talk. It's at our mum's, and we couldn't get access to it over the lockdown. But we've always been in each other's work. So I've used Nat in my work since I was a teenager, using predominantly photos, and Nat's used me in her work since she was a teenager, usually predominantly drawings and sculpture. So we've always kind of been in each other's works. But I guess when we really kind of started collaborating properly was when we went to film school together. Unfortunately, we didn't cross over at art school. Nat finished sculpture and I started drawing the year she finished, or the year after she finished. So we never kind of had that crossover, but we always were helping each other install shows until we got to film school, when we both finished our undergrad. And that was kind of pretty pivotal in terms of us working together. I did a lot of like Super 8 kind of abstract film, and Nat did the schlocky kind of horror films, A Koala Beast Man, which was pretty hilarious. And this is where she started kind of casting my body parts for the show. And I think we started really kind of working together from that time onwards. Yeah.
This was the first work we did as our collaboration. It was at C3, and it was a solo show. I guess it was kind of like a surprise kind of guess who was, you know, we were playing on that as coming out as this collaboration. And we also, Guess Who was a game we played when we were younger, and obviously the ghost of that playful sort of horror. And we really wanted to make it refer to film, like make it like a set, like a scene from a film as well, which is something we've been obviously really influenced by and continues to sort of play in our work. This is one of the work in progress shots for this work. And a lot of the works we make, they're quite almost like endurance tests, because they're quite full on. We're always super ambitious because we think, oh, there's two of us, we can just do anything now. Like, and this was, with this particular work, we decided that we chose a really hot day because we thought the plaster would set really quickly. We were actually under these. We actually did one at a time and posed and draped this plaster sheet over the top of ourselves. And it got so hot inside the plaster sheet because it was a hot day and the plaster heats up when it sets. So we both nearly passed out. So kind of like the process of the day was just one of us being in there and the other one like trying to use a fan to blow cool air on the other one, and then just tapping on the, you know, the plaster to make sure that the other person was all right. But yeah, it was quite full on process. This was another work, which I guess it was the first work we made where we used wax. So we started playing around with that sort of hyperreal finish. So we used wax for this, and we've used waxes and silicons as you'll see as we go on.
So this was another work we did, an earlier work called Slump. This was part of a project that Kieran Robinson had put together or curated called the Big East, which was brilliant to be a part of. It was set in Ringwood and it wasn't in a gallery space. So it was the first time we kind of were working with these sculptures in a non-gallery space, which was great because it made it so much more creepier. This is an old scout hall in Ringwood that we use. With the works we make, we really like to use a lot of like reference. I mean, a lot of them reference our childhood. So the sleeping bags in this work are from our childhood. They're what we used to take away when we went camping in like the 80s and 90s. The pants you can't really see, but they're hedgehog pajama pants that our mum got us. And usually the works or the clothes that we're wearing at the time we're making the work somehow get incorporated into the work. So the hedgehog pants made it in this time. With a lot of the works that we do, so this is a work in progress. So this is, we take we do kind of stage setups of the scenes. And this is just to see how it's working and how it's looking and if it's going to work. So there's kind of a performative element that doesn't get seen by anybody else. There's lots of images that we have, like a kind of bank of images that we have that we look at, and it's usually me and Nat crawling around the floor or rolling around the floor or doing something just to see if the pose is going to work. The other kind of performative and kind of funny element is when we get the works to, to the location they're being shown in. So you can see on the right-hand side, we had to drive the bodies to the location, to Ringwood, and we were pretty worried we were going to get stopped by the police. We usually have severed hands, heads, arms, in this case, bodies in bags that we're driving down. And it's kind of a pretty funny element with a lot of the works that we make, getting it to the location.
This is a work that we did for a show we curated at Strange Neighbour. It was a horror show. It was called Horror Show, and there were 13 artists in it. Again, it was using the waxes, and it paid homage to a film that we both saw at film school that we really fell in love with, Beauty and the Beast by Jean Cocteau. Again, the process is quite endurance tests, really, like I said. This was our hands that from the previous work that we cast in wax, and we cast in alginate, and then poured in wax. And we had our hands like up to our, top of our arms in this alginate, in this sort of tube, and they both got stuck. We both ended up with bruised and red fingers and hands. That was quite painful. From there, we have to do a lot of fixing up and working on them and doing the colouring and everything, and finishing from taking them out of the mould. Often it's really quite challenging that we have a full-time solo practice each, and then we obviously have jobs as well, and then have to fit in the Ryan sisters too. So often we'll be working at odd times of the night and till late into the night to sort of fit it all in. So it's another kind of almost comic element to the work, is that it's sort of done at night in crazy circumstances.
Yeah. So this is the work that we did, which was for a competition called Rookwood Hidden, or the Hidden at Rookwood Cemetery. So it's one of the biggest cemeteries in the Southern Hemisphere, and it's absolutely huge. It's in New South Wales. This was a work that we wanted to do. We had to make it outdoor. We hadn't done an outdoor work before, and it was actually installed in a cemetery. You can kind of see some of the tombstones behind. With a lot of the works we do, so getting these works interstate can be a bit challenging. We'll talk about some of the other ones that we've got. This one we made so it fit into this suitcase that we had. And we were like, oh my God, we got 13 severed hands, going up to Sydney, hopefully they don't X-ray it and we get in trouble or anything. And then we got through that area, and then we were like watching, we saw our suitcase going on that thing, the elevator that goes up, and it just about to fall off, and they just caught it. We're like, oh my gosh. So there's a lot of kind of comedy elements. With this one as well, we got up there to install it, and unfortunately they had run out of shovels. I don't know how at the cemetery they had, and we had to dig the holes with forks and chopsticks that we had from lunch from the airport. And the curator was coming around, she's like, Channel ABC are coming over to interview you, and we're like digging these kind of holes, trying to get these hands in, and spiders, like big spiders coming out of the grave. It was kind of a horror film, but it's a work that we had worked on. This is just a work in progress shot. So a lot of the works that we do we'll make down at our mum's. This one is from an old studio that we had, and they're it's pretty funny working down because the neighbours kind of come out. No one really knows what to make of the works that we're making. They're kind of very creepy, and a lot of the kids, they kind of look really perplexed. So but yeah, this is the progress shot of that work, just painting the hands up so we could get a bit of a realistic finish on them.
This was the work we actually did for a VCA fundraiser. Again, these were they were in wax, and it was just playing on that finger in the matchbox trick from when we were younger. This was another work. These were wax casts as well. We did these works at a time, like we give our right arm for an art grant, at a time where there'd been heaps of cuts to the arts by the government that was in the Liberal government, and it was also talking about how hard it is in the arts in general, even outside of that, just to survive, and the need for financial support and the lack of it. So this work was about that. They were shown for Not Fair, and they were displayed in a cardboard box with just the arms in there with packaging as well.
This is another work we made. So this was above a pizza shop, a vacant pizza shop. So this one's called Wake Me Up Before You Go. A lot of when we're making these works, we have a lot of music going. We also, again, our clothes have kind of made it in. This with the clothes we were wearing when we were kind of making this work. So they made it into the actual works. And the off-cuts of carpet come from our mum's house. So kind of try and incorporate a lot of, I guess, a lot of materials that have, they have a reference point to us. It's a personal reference point. I mean, whether or not the viewer knows, it doesn't matter. But for us, it's kind of, it becomes a bit of an integral part of the works. We'll go to the next one now. This is another work. So this work was called Gruesome Twosome. This was a work that we made for the Nicholas projects. And I guess this work was quite a kind of, I guess, a pivotal work again in our practice. It was something where we wanted to kind of incorporate the real meshing of our bodies and our identities. Because people get us mixed up quite a lot, we kind of like playing with that idea of that interwovenness that seems to be coming up more and more. So these are my legs in the background, and Nat's hands and torso, and then the giant kind of worm body to connect them. So this was quite a complicated work to make. This was the first phase that we did. So this was my legs cast in this pose. This was a bit of a challenging pose to cast and to hold, because you have to hold the pose for quite a long time. And I was a bit sick when we did this, so Nat had to kind of rip the mould off me a bit prematurely, but luckily the mould worked. These are cast in solid resin. So they're quite heavy because they needed to kind of hold the weight of the beast that sat kind of coming off it. And this is Nat's hands. So a lot of the materials, this is Nat's hands and torso that we cast. A lot of the materials kind of we have to, it's a bit complicated. There's the materials that don't work with each other. So molds will get stuck, or, you know, certain elements. So we've bagged up the hands in this shot. It doesn't work with other materials that we're using. So there's all kind of complexities as to how we make these beasts. You can see in the second, in this photo. So we kind of invite a lot of accidents. We do heaps of pre-planning with the works, but there's always things that kind of shift and evolve as we're making it. So this was the worm body, the joint of the worm body, which was using like a spray foam, so foam in the can. And it kind of went a little bit wild, but it worked to our, you know, it worked very happily.
It's like an IKEA thing, wasn't it? Like we had it like an IKEA, you know, it fitted together in the
we kind of slotted it together. So again, working at night, usually we're working on a few projects at this point in time. The next slide, I think, so our collaboration went, as I said, we work down at our mum's, and our mum usually does give us a hand. She loves to get involved. So the collaboration has kind of grown into a bit of a family kind of beast as well. So mum helped us do the sewing, like me and mum worked on the sewing of this giant jumper. Originally the beast was going to, and you can see how it's fitted on the body just as test. This was going to have a head, but we really wanted to kind of play with the fact that it was me and Nat kind of joining as a one kind of conglomerate beast. I don't know, like, so we didn't end up doing the head, and I think, we just wanted, we really, enjoyed that. I guess.
These were some other works that we made. They were quite big works as well, so they were nearly 2 meters tall. You can't see in this, but they actually have full cast face underneath them with prosthetic eyes, because we were playing around with doing something different at the time, and we ended up covering them like this. So there was a lot of work that went into these that, you know, and that happens sometimes, it's just not seen by the viewer. These were for Dark MOFO. We had a bit of a crazy time getting them over there. We hired a van from Thrifty, and the gearbox wasn't working properly. We also went on the ferry, and I didn't realise that I suffer from really bad motion sickness, and I got, after, you know, we got on there about 10 minutes later, I was quite sick, and then coming off the ferry and driving the next day, like 5 or 6 in the morning or whatever it is, and you can't see anything. There was fog, and there's trucks behind you, and there's just sadly roadkill everywhere. So it was like Mad Max, and we'll never do it again. I had to go to the dentist when we got back because I was grinding my teeth so hard from when I was driving. It was quite full on. These are some progress shots here. So this was testing out the draping, and again, it's at our mum's place. And this was, we coated the fabric in like a resin and draped that over the top. We always wear PPE properly, health and safety. So we had to get, you know, kitted up for this, because it was quite smelly, nasty stuff, really, that we used. And
so this is another work. So a lot of the works that we make, we kind of have to, I guess, position in situ. So these ones we made in the tire swings, not strings. So we've got some progress shots here. So again, kind of like with our clothes that we wear when we're kind of working on these things, testing ideas, just making sure, you know, seeing if there's ways around having to cast the body, like building the body in this, you can see in the figure that's closer to the camera, that we tried to build the legs, but it didn't quite work. So again, casting the legs in the next shot, I think you'll see them. So yeah, we ended up casting our legs for this, and we've cast our hands that are bagged up and our head, or just using the polystyrene head, which would have melted if, I might go back. Oh, that's all right. Which would have melted with the resin that we're using to harden them. So just, I think using different materials is just a lot of kind of different processes that we have to kind of be cautious of with the materials. Things will melt something. The foam that we used here wasn't melted by the resin that we used, but it would have melted the head that we were using. So there can be some kind of complexities when we're using the different kind of types of material. And so again, also once the bodies are rigid, so in the last frame you could see that it was it looked like we had painted like a resin over the top to harden the bodies. When we do that, we have to just be cautious, because you have to dress, you know, putting a costume over something that's rigid can be quite difficult. So yeah, these costumes are great. We can sometimes sew, you know, cut the clothes and sew them into them. Again, our shoes that we were wearing when we were making the work is incorporated into the works again. So yeah.
This was the work we made for
Latrobe
Art Institute.
Yeah.
For Latrobe Art Institute. And it was really paying homage to like our childhood. We did lots of seances and scared ourselves like silly all the time. It's got some film references too, but what we did for this is we had quite a large space and we blacked out the whole thing. So we painted it all black and we blacked it out with the lighting. So there's a red curtain that you had to walk through to get into the space. It was like double layered, so there was no light that could come in, and that created this illusion of these hands just floating there without bodies. They actually had, it was a table, and we had like dresses on them that just faded into the black, so it sort of draped down. And this is some of the works in progress shots. So we were casting our hands, and we had to make sure that we cast them on the actual table that we were going to use, and we spaced them out and made sure that the hands were in the right position so that they'd fit around the table and nearly just about touch. These are the hands work in progress again. So this is silicone work. It takes a long time to get that hyperreal sort of finish. It can be 60 coats of fine mist paint that will be sprayed and splattered over the top to create those pigments, you know, greens and purples and blues and yellows that very slowly build up from the inside and the outside. And this is a closer finish of those. So that's just at the end doing the nails and doing all the highlights and everything in the veins. Yeah.
This is another work that we did, which was a full head cast. So we'd done full head casts for kind of horror films that we'd worked on in the past, but not really for a collaborative. So this is the first one that we did as a collaborative kind of, collaborative in our collaborative practice. This is called Alma's Trolley. So this is actually our Alma's Trolley, our Alma, and I think with a lot of the works that we do, we're kind of reinserting our adult selves into childhood memories. So there's a really kind of uncanny or a bit of a disconnect between these childhood memories and our adult selves. And so this is what we used to do. Our Alma, we'd get in the trolley and Alma would take us down to the Balkan butchers or shopping or to pick up our other sister from school. So we wanted to kind of put our adult selves back in that. And that was from the John Fries Award as well. So with doing the head casts, they're quite a lengthy process. So the first one is a capture cast using a skin-safe silicone and doing a support mold over the top, which is plaster. And so you're in this thing for about an hour and a half, depending on how hot it is and how fast it takes to dry. Once you kind of take that off, it's a really kind of strange sensation. You have to have this kind of really, it is kind of like a death mask in a lot of ways. You've got to kind of really relax your face, so everything kind of feels like it drops a little bit. Once we have taken the cast, taken the last cast apart, we need to pour it in the monster clay to fix all the imperfections. So that's on the left-hand side, is the cast of the monster clay with the glass prosthetic eyes in. We then need to make another mold that's compatible with silicone, that's got all of the imperfections gone, and that's what Nat's doing in the right-hand side. Once that's kind of been done, we do another support mold over the top, and then we pour it in the silicone. And then you pull out the monster clay, and in this case my nose and chin got stuck for some reason, but we really like this kind of, these are kind of some of the things that occur with the mold making. We'd love to kind of cast some of these works as well, but this is poured in the silicone. So we do tint the silicone. We try and kind of tint it slightly under I guess the skin color. It comes out quite flat, and then as Nat said, we're building up the layers of pigment. So usually about 60 coats of the airbrushing fine silicones and dyeing the silicones and just doing layer and layer, so it builds up that translucency. Also doing hair punching around, or go back now. Also hair punching around the eyelashes, just to give it a little bit more, I guess, making it not look so dead. I mean, these look pretty dead, but and also getting wigs. So my hair color changes quite frequently. At this stage it was blonde, and to get them looking even more realistic, we ended up taking them to our hairdresser, and our hairdresser matched our haircuts at the time, which just kind of made them even more kind of creepier, and was just hilarious in itself, taking these like dead heads for a haircut. So yeah, which is pretty funny. And I think is that the last one for this? Oh yeah.
And this is a recent work we've made. It's been really hard to collaborate with lockdowns and the current situation. So this was a work we started last year, and it was for a show, Paper Mache at Missing Persons Gallery, a group show. And it took us a long time to finish the work, sort of working in between lockdowns. But it was really nice to finally do something together and finish something together and have a show together. This was the first time we'd used Paper Mache in our work, in our collaborative practice. And it was something that was really nice to play around with, as opposed to using the silicones and the resins, because it had a more of a schlocky finish. It wasn't sort of that, we weren't so precious with it. It wasn't so trying to get that realism so much. So we actually played around with it and made them a bit more comical. On the left is when they came out of the mold, and they've just been painted with the pink. And then on the right is how we painted them up. That's Pip's head there. So that was really nice to do something that was a bit more playful, and I think it's something that we'll definitely play around with a lot more, I think, and push that kind of schlocky and not so precious finish.
Yeah, just
that's sort of more comical.
Yeah, not so time consuming as well. I think that just there's so many different processes and
expensive as well.
And expenses as well with making the kind of hyper real silicones and the resins as well. And the resins kind of, some of those really stink.
And we don't want to get away from those.
Trying to get away from using those kind of materials if we can.
And this has got more, more
and I guess that kind of concludes the slideshow part of things. So thank you so much.
Thanks everyone.
Oh, look, Pip and Nat, that was such a great talk, and I just can't thank you enough for taking us through your practice in that way. Just a reminder, if anybody has a question, feel free to put it through in the Q&A facility. I'm interested in a lot about your practice, but you took us through the beginning part of the talk, had those references to I guess horror films, and I wonder, as adults now, what's the place of horror films for you now? I mean, you kind of alluded to this thing, it was something naughty, as kids it was naughtier on the tail ends of your brothers, but now you're grown, and what are your thoughts about horror films and kids and all of that stuff now?
I think it's I still love horror. I think there's problematic things with horror.
Yeah.
There's definitely some issues, or a lot of issues that come, especially with like the 80s and 90s horrors. But I still have a massive soft spot for them, and just I think seeing the prosthetics and some of the special effects that were from that era are just, they're so phenomenal, like looking at what they did. So that still really excites me. Yeah.
Likewise. And I think also at the moment, like I was listening to, with like horror films are such a way of a controlled experience of fear, I think. And I think often, it's a lot of people watch them as a safe sort of way of dealing with trauma and other things too. Like they were saying throughout the pandemic that the increase has been in like a lot of horror films. There's been an increase in the watching. I think it's kind of like a way to escape the reality with the fears of the real world, and sort of have these, sort of staged fears, I guess. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested. Like for me, when I looked at your mum's backyard, is that your mum's backyard, by the way? It is her backyard.
Yeah.
It sort of reminded me of some of those horror movie, those schlock splatter movie set, with the limbs sort of thrown everywhere. And I wanted to, like, there is a question about, given that horror films revolve around a narrative, albeit loose, there is this narrative. Is narrative an important aspect of your work, would you say?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's an important, most of the works we make have got a reference to a memory or a happening that we've experienced. Whether or not the viewer kind of is aware of that, I don't think it really matters so much, but I think we have to have an anchor point to a kind of personal narrative or memory. So I think it is quite important. Yeah.
It's just embedded in the work. And there's so many other narratives in there, like people are saying, just even using the clothes that we're sculpting, and it becomes like every sort of aspect of the work has this kind of reference to our experiences together, and storytelling in a way, I guess. And like Pip said, the viewer might not be aware of that, but for us it's really important that it's in there. It just becomes, it's very nostalgic. I think the collaboration is really nostalgic. We look back on our childhood a lot, and it's like a fun sort of safe place. And it's an escape from our own practices too. Like I think you get so bound by, you're this artist that does this, you can't do anything outside of this. And so this collaboration for us is pure freedom. It's like we can come to this and just create whatever we want without feeling these restrictions that we have with our own practices too, I think.
Well, that really leads me to a question that's come in that says, so many of these works involve two figures or two body parts. How much do you see of yourselves as a pair of sisters in these works? Do you heavily relate to them as bodies or identities?
Yeah, definitely. I think so, because Nat will work on her and I work on me. Yeah. So we work on ourselves.
Yeah.
But then if we're going too far, Nat will be like, you're going too far with this, like it's looking a bit crazy, or it's, and I'll be like, Nat, you're going too far. Like,
I like that head recently.
Yeah. with the head recently. Initially, the paper mache heads, Nat had painted her eyes in. She was like, does this look right? And I'm like, something's really, really wrong. And it's because one eye was like slightly lower by a centimetre or something. And we just could not stop laughing. Yeah. We're like, should we leave it? And we're like, we can't leave it. So yeah, I think we see they're kind of like a weird, I don't know, like a shadow, I guess, or extension of us in a lot of ways. And we do talk to them a little bit when we're working on them. Like I remember slapping my silicon head, I was so angry. You know, like I've had enough, and it kind of was just wobbled a little bit. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, when you're like trying to squash something in or packing it or whatever,
just like kind of
handling of bodies, it's kind of odd, quite weird.
Because look, let me just go straight to another question. It struck me when I saw the head cast of how this was akin to being buried alive, and how brave and what an amazing sense of endurance you must have, which leads me to ask about something about a metaphorical death to make these clones of yourself. So I wonder if there is anything about this observation that strikes a chord with you.
It's quite interesting. I mean, I guess it is like a shedding, like, because we're giving into our singular. I guess it's the death of the singular in a way, metaphorically, in making this collaborative work of the two of us. I don't know. What do you think, Pip?
Yeah, I think that's pretty.
It's quite a beautiful read.
Yeah. I don't even know how to kind of extend what you've just said. I think they are. I'm just
Well, you know, I mean, that's the great thing about these sessions, that they, you know, that there's this facet that gets revealed. I've got one more question, and that is about the themes in your work. Like there's how those themes work in a horror film, and there's how those themes work in an art gallery context. And I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about the transference of those themes and well, I'm not asking this question very well, but the difference in the way those themes occur when you're in a cinema watching Friday the 13th parts 1 through to 9, or when you're in ACCA looking at the work that you made for the John Fry's Award. And I'm not just, you don't have to refer to those particular examples, but just that shift.
Yeah, do you want to go, Nat, or do you want me to?
Do you want to go first?
Well, I think personally, when I encounter a three-dimensional work in a gallery context or gallery space, there is that moment where I walk into a space and there's like an uncanny, like, is that a person or is that not? And I think you have that within a horror film, but it's much more kind of like, I don't know, flat or something. Yeah, you kind of like, you know that there's a prompt of like something is coming with the music or the shift. But when you're in a gallery, I feel like there's something that sometimes catches you off guard a little bit more. It's like, it has got kind of more of a, I guess, the ghost feel to it. Like if you go into a space and you see something out of the corner of your eye, or so I feel like there's a bit more unnerving when you encounter these kind of figures within the space. Well, that's how I kind of, I guess, I feel. Yeah,
because it's like sharing the same space as you rather than just being on a screen, almost kind of.
Yeah. And I just think there's something. Especially when you walk into galleries and there's no one else except for a figure or something that resembles some kind of a figurative work, it kind of always catches me off guard, and it totally excites me, you know, straight away. So, I guess.
I agree with that as well, I think,
Oh, no, that's so great. Look, we've come to the end of the session, and I really do thank you both so much for such outrageous generosity and fun, and you know, the sort of, there's a question that often comes up, you know, when did you make a work of art? And when I think about your work, it starts when you're little and you're watching, you're watching these movies or going on the family trip to Universal Studios, and you're still making it. So to put a date like, 2021 is sort of really limiting, because you started that work when you saw Jaws. It's just so exciting to hear a practice shared in the way that you shared it, that involves your mum and your brothers and each other, and that exists in like we're in lockdown, and here you are showing us pictures of your mum's backyard and the dining room, and it's very extraordinary generosity. And we, on behalf of everyone today, thank you so much for sharing that world with us. And to everybody that joined us for Art Forum, thank you so much. We don't take it lightly that you spend this time with us, and we look forward to you joining us next Thursday as well. But Pip and Nat, thank you again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much,
having us.
David. Like, we've got to say, like, we were watching these when we were at VCA, and we're so excited to be asked to do this. So we're just so thankful that we could share the works with you and everyone who's listened today. So thank you so much.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Okay, bye everybody.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.